Hey, timekeepers, welcome back to We Got Time Today. I'm your host, Will on the mic. Now, what do we have time for today? Well, listen, today's episode is personal because we're talking about the crown, and not the one that sits on your head, but the one that is your head. Yep, you guessed it, your hair. Black hair has always been more than style. It's been protest, it's been survival, it's been identity, and unfortunately, it's also been policed. So today, we're taking it all the way back from the Tignon Laws of 1786 to the Crown Act of today. We're talking about why America has always feared our crowns and why we still have to legally fight for the right to wear them free. But before I get into all of that, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a single episode of We Got Time Today. Okay, so let me set the stage. Let's rewind to Louisiana, 1786. Back then, the city of New Orleans had a problem. At least that's what white lawmakers saw. You had free black women, known as gens de couleurs libres, walking around the French Quarter with confidence. They were educated, stylish, and yes, stunning. Their elaborate hairstyles with jewels and ribbons had white men looking a little too long, and white women getting a little too jealous. So the governor, Esteban Mito, passed something called the Tignon Laws, a decree forcing black women to cover their hair in public. The goal was simple: to reduce attention and remind them of their inferior status. But you know how we do. You tell us to dim our light, we just find a way to make it shine brighter. These women took those head wraps, tions, and turned them into art. Bright colors, elaborate knots, fabrics that screamed luxury. What was meant to humiliate became a fashion statement and a quiet rebellion. And that wasn't the first time our hair was targeted. During the transatlantic slave trade, enslaved Africans had their hair forcibly shaved before being sold, stripping away their cultural identity and traditions. It was a deliberate act to erase roots and heritage. They tried to make us invisible, but we turned it into couture. They shaved our heads to erase our roots. But every time they tried to silence our hair, we just found new ways to speak. Now, let's fast forward post-slavery, early 1900s. The rise of respectability politics. You had leaders saying, if you want to be accepted, we have to present ourselves as respectable, clean, proper, professional. Translation: we had to look as close as white as possible. All right. Straight hair became the standard. And in some ways, it was survival. Madam C.J. Walker built an entire empire helping black women care for their hair. And we love her for that. But let's be honest, a big part of why straightening took off wasn't just beauty, it was access. You wanted a job? You needed to look presentable. You wanted to be taken serious in white spaces? That meant taming your kinks and your curls. In the 1970s, the afro became a symbol of black pride and resistance. But wearing an afro could still mean discrimination. Beverly Jenkins was denied a promotion at Blue Cross because of her afro, leading to a landmark court case. Even then, the law only protected afros, not other natural styles. And that idea didn't die out. It evolved right into the corporate world, the newsroom, and yes, even the White House. So, speaking of White House, let us talk about Michelle Obama. You know, our forever First Lady, shout out to Michelle, when she recently admitted in interviews that she intentionally wore her hair straight during Barack's presidency because she knew America wasn't ready for a First Lady with braids. That's wild. But that wasn't vanity, that was strategy. She said, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, that she didn't want the focus to be on her hair instead of her husband's leadership. Now I want us to pause on that for a minute. The First Lady of the United States felt like she had to hide her natural hair to keep white America comfortable. That right there tells you everything about why the Crown Act exists. Respectability was supposed to protect us, but all it did was teach us how to shrink. Now, let's call this next part what it is: the myth of professionalism. Because when people say your hair isn't professional, what they really mean is your hair doesn't fit our version of normal. Think about it. Locks, afros, braids, twists, all labeled distracting or unkept. Meanwhile, Becky with the messy bun and dry ass shampoo is being promoted to team lead. Make it make sense. I got time for this today, so that's why, I'm throwing a little shade. So, in 1981, Renee Rogers, a flight attendant, was required to cover her hair at work due to a policy banning all braided hairstyles. Her lawsuit was dismissed because the court ruled hair was not an immutable characteristic protected by law. In 2016, Chastity Jones lost a job offer because she refused to cut her locks. The court said Title VII didn't protect her hairstyle. And let's be honest, it's not just adults. In 2017, twin sisters Maya and Deanna Cook was given detention for wearing braids at their Massachusetts school. In 2018, Andrew Johnson, a high school wrestler, was forced to cut his locks on the mat before a match. And then in 2023, Daryl George in Texas was suspended for refusing to cut his locks, even after the state passed their own version of the Crown Act. Kids have been sent home for wearing braids, men denied jobs for locks, women told that their afro were too political, and then folks wonder why we're still having this conversation today. That's why the Crown Act matters. It's not about vanity, it's about protection, because discrimination doesn't always come with a slur. Sometimes it comes with, "We don't think you're the right cultural fit." How many times have we heard that phrase? And let's be honest, we've all code switched in one way or another, right? Maybe you wore a wig to an interview. Maybe you toned down your natural curls at work. Maybe you didn't. But the fact is that that was even a consideration. That's the issue. So let me break it down. The Crown Act, which some of you may or may not know, is short for Creating a Respectable and Open World for Natural Hair. It was first introduced in California in 2019, so shout out to State Senator Holly Mitchell for leading that charge. It basically says employers and schools can't discriminate based on natural hair textures or protective styles like braids, twists, and locks. Since then, over 20 states have passed their own versions, but it's still not federal law. That means millions of Black people can still be punished for the way their hair grows out of their own heads. I know, it's crazy. In 2020, a study found that Black women with natural hairstyles are less likely to get job interviews than white women or Black women with straightened hair. Black women are 1.5 times more likely to be sent home from work because of their hair, and many feel pressured to change their hair for job interviews. Think about that. In 2025, we still need a law to say, don't fire someone for their braids. Come on now. That's why the Crown Act isn't about hair. It's about humanity. So, what does all of this mean for us now? It means every time you walk into a boardroom, a classroom, or a studio rocking your natural hair, you're carrying generations of resistance with you. It means that when your auntie spends 6 hours braiding your hair before the first day of school, she's just not styling you, she's protecting you. And it means that when Michelle Obama finally showed us her natural curls after the White House, it wasn't just fashion, it was freedom. Our hair has always been criminalized, politicized, and commodified, but it's still ours. And no law, no policy, and no office dress code can take that away. When they told us to cover our crowns, they didn't realize we were already royalty. So, if this episode spoke to you, if you ever had to defend your hair, explain your hair, or fight for a right to wear it free, then make sure you comment below. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe as well. Share this episode with someone who's ever been told that natural hair wasn't professional enough. Because the truth is, our hair has always been professional. It's been political. It's been powerful. So again, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a single episode of We Got Time Today. Until next time, timekeepers.